Thank you, Betsy. I'd also like to point out my colleague, Tony Moreno, who, Tony, raise your hand, wave, something like it, up there, kind of back in the middle. Tony manages one of Houston Endowment's most important programs, the Jones Scholars Program, which Betsy alluded to a minute ago. Houston Endowment spends $5 million a year supporting, at any one time, there's 1,200 or so students from the Harris County region in their college aspirations. And it's a program that people who work at the foundation and our governing board are very proud of. Houston Endowment, it's been around, Tony, where are we, 50 years?
Yeah.
55. The Jones Scholars Program's been in existence 55 years. It represents about $55 or $60 million in expenditures since inception, and is it
97 million.
97 million. A little bit of an aside here. Tony and I have the distinct pleasure of helping spend enormous quantities of someone else's money. So it's a nice place to be. But almost 100 million, 8,000 or 9,000 students since inception. It's a program we're really proud of. The students do well. It's focused on kids who need this money, need this support, and we're really proud of it. This topic tonight, and much of A+'s work, is near and dear to the hearts of Houston Endowment. We pay a lot of attention as a grant-making organization to the issue of college access and success. I don't know if any of you all, the adults in the room, have recently helped your kids with the college application process. Thank the Lord that my twins are 27, and so we have gotten past that. It was one of the most convoluted, complicated, frustrating processes I've gone through, my wife and I have gone through in a long time. I'm constantly amazed that kids from families that are not familiar with the language, not familiar with FAFSA, not familiar with tax returns, have no familiarity with colleges or universities, can successfully navigate a pretty complicated system. So you all are doing great work here, and I congratulate you all. A couple of data points that to follow up on Betsy. I would recommend that if you're interested in the success of students in Texas, that you go to the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board's website. They just released their 2013 Higher Education Almanac. Go to page 9, and it will talk about some of those numbers that Betsy mentioned in Texas. And this is good, solid data. What we know in Texas is that if you are when you start 8th grade, and if you are classified in the state's data system as economically disadvantaged, and then you go out 11 academic years later, which would be the normal 6-year graduation rate, the chances of you obtaining a workforce certificate, a certificate, associate's degree, baccalaureate, and so forth, is 8 out of 100. So the question is, what happens to those other 92? Let me also mention, if this is a little bit older data, I haven't looked at current, but we talk a lot in Texas and other states about the high school dropout problem. If you look at longitudinal student record data, more kids don't complete higher education in Texas than don't complete high school, which is something that we need to pay attention to, because the ones that don't complete college, they've done everything they need to do, that their families want them to do, that we as citizens want them to do, that the state wants them to do up until that point in time. They went to high school, they persisted, they passed the tests that are the subject of a lot of controversy these days. They got their diploma, they walked across the stage, they applied to college, they went to college, and then they flamed out in massive numbers. So we've got not only a college access problem, but a college success problem. Half or more of these low-income kids, when they show up to college, they are required to take remedial courses that are non-credit bearing. Many of them have never heard of such a thing until they show up and they take a placement test that they're not ready for, and all of a sudden they find themselves taking math courses that essentially are a repeat of middle school math, or maybe a little bit higher. So we've got a lot of work to do. The good news is, I think, when you look sort of across the landscape in Houston at the leadership in the school districts is quite good. The community college leadership in the Gulf Coast region is really outstanding. So we've got the right people working on these organizations. They're interested in student success. The community colleges have had a dramatic shift in their mindset over the last 8 or 10 years. They used to be focused on access, period. That meant what's our enrollment and how many student credit hours are we generating this year. Now it's they care about access, but they care just as much about the success of their students. So that's a good start. It's going to take continued work by those institutions, the A-pluses of the world, to make this work. One last story, then I'll step aside. I went to an event last night. I'm sitting here giving you all this grim data. I went to stop by an event last night. There's a group that has started working in Houston. It's been around for a while. They just started in Houston. We're proud to be able to support them, called the Posse Foundation. I don't know if you all are familiar with it or not. Posse Foundation works on college access in a number of schools in the Houston area. They've just started this, and a certain number of those students become Posse scholars. And I got to meet most of the 30 that were selected as Posse scholars last night. This was one of the most remarkable, enthusiastic, impressive group of young people I've been around in a long time. I think they were essentially all first-generation college goers. They are going to be successful. I think they're sort of the shining light and set an example for us adults to figure out how to arrange the system so it works for a lot more than 30. Anyway, and I too want to thank Chevron for their sponsorship of this series, and the museum's done a magnificent job in providing this wonderful facility, and I will turn it over to the next person. Thank you.